and welcome to Richmond Kickers Weekly, a crossover episode with the guys from River City 93. My name is Daryl Grove, as usual. The guy who's always here, Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
A lovely introduction. The guy who's always here.
Said with love.
I appreciate that.
With love. And we also have love for River City 93, the other Richmond Kickers podcast.
Smaller brand, but we're here.
We're joined by the co-host, Elliot Barr. Hello,
Hey,
Elliot.
I'm trying my hardest not to laugh. Because Chenier can tell you I always laugh during the introduction for some odd reason. So it's just a natural thing.
And Chenier around the second. Hello.
Hello.
Do we call you like Deuce or... Did you do anything with the second?
Not really.
Not really?
Just Chenier.
Just Chenier.
Daryl trying to make nicknames happen. That's not a normal thing for you. I like it.
So our crossover episode, it's the end of the season for the Richmond Kickers. Mm-hmm. We all know what's happened, right? Finished 9th out of 10. Head coach David Bulow was let go.
And yet you're recapping it anyway.
I'm recapping it anyway in case some people don't know what happened. See what I did there?
That's it.
We asked for listener questions, right? People, some of these questions are from Kickers fans. Some of these questions are from people who've listened to our show, who have sort of supported the Kickers from afar just by hearing the podcast, which is definitely an interesting way to experience that season where we finished 9th out of 10. Yeah. And those people have questions.
They do.
They do. So we're going to have 7 questions on this episode, and then the other 7 questions we've got are going to be on the River City 93 episode. So it's a bit like what we did with the Cooligans, but with less offensive jokes.
And less volume,
from Alexis Guerreros. And less volume from Alexis Guerreros.
We'll see. We'll see how loud y'all get. But yeah, Alexis is hard to beat, I think, when it comes to that.
So the key to this we found with the Cooligans is pretty much to let everybody have a go at quickly answering the question. So fingers on buzzers. Are you ready for the first question?
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
All right. It's from Zach Spaeth. Zach Spaeth asks, what's the position that needs the biggest upgrade?
Striker.
And then in parentheses, Zach says,
Forward.
For me, it's a striker.
Goal scorer.
Finishing was awful. Taylor, you seem keen to jump in. What position needs the biggest upgrade on the Kickers when we go into 2020?
I mean, I think sometimes it can be harsh to say it's a striker when there's a lack of goals because it could mean that there's like a lack of providing behind that striker. But I think even with that being the case, and Joe Gallardo was there, so he's a decent provider, I think the lack of like clinical finishing in front of goal that we saw on a fairly routine basis has me thinking that maybe they should go with like a young upstart striker who maybe can score goals. That's what I would say.
Elliot, what do you think? What's the position that needs the biggest upgrade, and why is it striker?
For me,
or do you have a different opinion?
I do.
Okay.
I would go defense. I would definitely look at like getting backups for center backs because
we do need more numbers.
There were literally 2 games.
I forgot about
the
that.
Chattanooga game and the North Texas game where we literally did not have center backs.
Yep.
And if we missed Akwe back there were games where Ivan had to play the center back by himself.
Yep.
If Connor, I love Connor, but Connor is slow as dirt. Anytime Connor runs over 20 miles an hour, I'm afraid he's going to pull up and both hamstrings are going to go.
Hey, if he could run 20 miles an hour, we wouldn't be so worried about his pace.
But yeah.
I like that you were like, no disrespect, and then proceeded to like...
Connor knows I'm going to rip him. Like, I call Connor and Troy both like the old guys that go to the YMCA in like gym shorts. Do you expect nothing from, and they just sit there and practice free throws? Like Mr. Fundamental, those two.
So the rule is if you say, I love someone, but... You can say anything about them
exactly.
afterwards.
Okay.
That's the rule of the black community.
But I definitely agree with you. that there's literally a lack of numbers at centre-back, right? I think we relied a lot on Boubacar Keita being part of the squad. And then after the U20 World Cup, there was the injury. He went back to Columbus and never came back. And we were just a man down for the rest of the season.
Yeah. And let me just add that I like Virginia State, but I like Virginia Union more.
You can get out.
Chenier, what do you think? Biggest upgrade that the Kickers need?
I think I'm going to have to agree with Taylor. I mean, with regards to the center back situation, I think that's an issue, not an issue of an upgrade. That's an issue of numbers.
Yeah.
But
some depth.
We need depth in that position, not upgrade, because I do feel that Akwe and Connor Shanowski did a very good job. When we were playing with 3 in the back, Ivan even improved a lot, because I remember early on in the season, you and me, we were getting in on Ivan.
It was more me.
Yeah, it was more you. I was trying to be nice, but no. So I would say up top, I mean, I feel not very clinical when we look at our top goal scorer. Our top goal scorer was Gallardo, who's not a striker.
Yeah.
It took a while for our strikers to really set into actually starting to score goals. Yeah. And you need someone who can come off the blocks, especially in a league where you only have 10 teams.
Yeah,
that's true.
And I would agree because from what I understand, Jackson and Chin were two of the more experienced players on the roster. I don't know for sure, but I think they were maybe paid a little better than some of the other players. So it was a lot of money spent on what ended up not being very productive strikers. And I would argue it's not just looking at goals, it's looking at the threat they provide throughout the game, right? And to me, neither Jackson nor Chin, there wasn't like a thing where if we were in trouble, we could just play a direct ball and they would hold it up and then we could build from there. You know what I'm saying? And there wasn't neither of them were particularly quick. There's no pace in behind. So none of those basic threats, aerial threat and pace threat that we got from either of those strikers. And frankly, in a league like League One, you need some of those basic threats, right? Something good in the air or something fast on the ground.
One more thing I would say to that, though, maybe I'm jumping ahead a little bit, is part of my frustration with this season is that I still feel like I don't have as many answers to questions that I had at the beginning of the season or midway through.
Yeah.
And one of those is is Boateng good enough to be a starting striker for that team? And I feel like there are times when I saw him look very good.
Yeah.
So that's also the other element is
he was more exciting. I was more excited.
That starting striker, I don't know if they need
more
one.
of a recency thing with Boateng because what
that
we
could well
saw.
Be.
But there were moments of the year where Boateng would even start or come into games and it didn't look like
he looked lost.
It looked lost.
I mean, his only two performances were the last game and the U.S. Open Cup game where we won 6-1.
And the goal he scored against Chattanooga. But I also think the thing about the striker position, like you said, Daryl, if the strikers were providing assists or they were doing good hold-up play, we wouldn't be so concerned about the striker scoring goals. But when you're not even having the assist or the MLS assist, then it really is a bright spot. All right, what are the strikers doing?
So I think 3 out of 4 of us agree striker, and Elliot's going to be controversial and say centre-backs and throw a casual insult at Connor Shinnell. All right, next question.
Was that casual?
Next question comes from Weston Shelton, who I believe is part of the Capital Combustion Lansing Ignite podcast. Weston says, obviously you guys didn't score a lot last year. No need to open your question with an insult, Weston.
Thanks, Thanks a lot, buddy.
Would you like to see a coach with a more aggressive system next year, or are you content with any style that leads to wins, even if it isn't necessarily appealing soccer? I feel like you guys touched on this on your most recent River City 93 podcast. So do you want to see a coach with a more aggressive system, or any style that grinds out some wins?
Grinds out results.
Chenier, you started. Go first, yeah.
Yeah.
You hit the buzzer first.
Okay. Beep. All right. As a soccer nerd, I would want something more exciting.
Okay.
Something where we're creating more chances, more get-out-of-your-seat moments. Of course...
Stand up for Richmond, but because it's exciting.
Because it's exciting, not because the
not
Red
just
Army
the Red Army tells you
to. Pleading for you to stand up.
It's sad and true. All at once. Yeah.
Tyler, what do you think?
I think the same. I think that I think about a lot of people you have the Red Army who go to every game, support the team every single game. You have other people who go and watch the game for tactics and things like that. I think the vast majority of people.
It's just me and you.
There's a few more. Our friend John Blair and his son go and watch tactics and see what's happening. But I think that the vast majority of people that either went to games this season or would potentially go if the Kickers are having a strong season go because they want to see goals and things to cheer for.
Yeah.
And I think if you're
playing 3-2 loss, kind of still a good day out.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. I think if you're seeing goals, if you're seeing kind of high energy, we've talked about it before, like Havoc equivalent soccer, I think that pulls people in much more so than simply winning games 1-0, especially at this level in this league.
Okay, yeah, I think I'm on board with that. Elliot, what'd you say?
So I'm going to be controversial again. To me, it really doesn't matter. I would love to see someone that, regardless of the system, if it's a bunker down defense and we win a game 1-0, or
Jose Mourinho style.
Yeah. Or if it's the...
Really? You'd go and watch Kickers if they played, say, 4-5-1 and a low block and everybody defending at the top of their box.
I'm also a lover for defense.
And scored on 2 counterattacks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a lover for defense. So I love a good defensive team and knowing that's something a team can rally around.
Yeah. So you'd be cheering every Connor Shinnowski headed clearance?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Connor can jump, but I don't know about that high.
I mean, he's already got the height. Doesn't need to go too much higher.
Yeah, exactly. But to me, it doesn't matter. I want a coach with a solidified system in place.
Yeah.
And I think regardless of what that system is, as long as the team is winning, people will come around and they'll love it.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about earlier where you guys were looking for the other mics.
Don't reveal our secrets. As far as people know, this is a smooth running operation.
Yeah, exactly. A lot smoother than ours.
A lot smoother.
About how, like, when Jose Mourinho was winning, you didn't hear a lot of the critics about his style of play. It was about, he's winning, even despite, like, he's playing this awful low block and stuff like that. But it wasn't until he started losing that it started to come up and people started to critique it. So I think, regardless of whatever system the Kickers play, I think as long as you're winning, people will love it. People will embrace it.
Well, I'm already on record. I'll just repeat it quickly because I think I said it at the end of our last podcast. I would love a high-pressing style where the opposition has the ball. We have a team that just goes after them and tries to win the ball back high. And if it fails, they play through us. But I feel like it would just be really exciting because something would be happening all the time and people would be on the edge of their seats in City Stadium.
Yeah.
And I feel that's one of the problems that the Kickers have had recently is that, especially being among the Red Army, the exciting thing is coming up with new chance, not what's going on the pitch.
Yeah, because there's a lot of slow possession.
The ball is moving around in the midfield. Occasionally it gets in a final third and something happens. Eventually people can get tired of that.
Yeah, look at a team like Greenville. Greenville is one of the best defensive teams, but their offense really comes from them crossing the ball in.
Yeah.
And even still, like...
There's still some excitement
still
there.
excitement behind it. So we'll see.
All right, ready for the next question?
Let's do it.
This is from Trish But Spookier. Is the Twitter name? I'm assuming
Halloween season.
That's it, right? That's a name.
We're going to go with that.
It's ready for Halloween. Will you be investing in some inflatable kangaroos for the 2020 season? Does it make sense to this question?
Budget, so no.
It's the inflatable flamingos that people wear.
I see. So it's like, we're going to do a
games.
Madison-type thing, but with kangaroos.
Yeah, I think we had a couple questions that alluded to the idea that everyone is going to try to emulate the success of Ford Madison.
So what would you think if we all turned up at City Stadium with inflatable kangaroos? Would it be too much of like a Madison knockoff?
Yeah, there's a copy.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like, now granted, I have no problem with Ford Madison at all. Ford's cool, whatever. That's their own style of play. But I don't want Richmond to be like, we're copying from Ford.
Yeah.
Like, our podcast is not going to be like y'all podcast because we're not y'all. Like, that's not cool to do.
That would be like going to a Liverpool game and when Liverpool scores, seeing the fans do the Potsdam.
Yeah.
No.
That would be weird.
That's Manchester City's thing. Your thing is sing You'll Never Walk Alone. You know what I mean? It's every team should have their own personality, identity.
Do
the Kickers need a new thing?
I don't
When
think...
you say new thing, what do you mean?
Exactly.
I do it like if someone said like what are Forward Madison known for, someone might say people doing the flamingo call while there are set pieces being taken, or people might say the inflatable what's the bird? Flamingos. What would they say about the Kickers? I honestly don't know.
Yeah.
I think that
the Red Army yells at our goalkeeper.
I do think that is part of it. That I think some aspects of what the Kickers do are what the Kickers have always done. And when you are the longest continually operating team, I don't know if you knew that, Daryl. They rarely mention that.
I've heard.
I think there can be an inclination to like, this is what we've always done. This has been our tradition. This has been how we operate.
So maybe Kickaroo is the answer.
Well, no, but I was going to say, but then that can become a problem because if you're always doing it the same way because this is what we've always done and you have other people coming in who are doing things differently, it makes you stand out that much more. So I think I wouldn't necessarily say like they should start doing inflatable kangaroos. They should have fighting kangaroos. That's what I want.
But we could
I don't want that, by the way.
Kickaroo is a part of the Kickers image, right? So inflatable kangaroos would be a Forward knockoff, but maybe something else kangaroo related.
Yeah, I enjoy Kickaroo. I don't know how.
Kangaroo boxing at halftime.
Yeah, again, I think Peter might not love that. We might hear about that one a little bit.
I mean, the kangaroo tends to win.
Have you not seen Kangaroo Jack, Taylor?
No, I have not. Well, let me ask you all this.
Kangaroo races at halftime where you put like there's an adult.
I definitely thought you just yelled kangaroo racism, and I was like, I don't think I said anything of that type.
But to be like, whoa, sir!
Got real serious in here.
You have like a parent with the kid in a little like Baby Bjorn type pouch, and you do a race.
But see, I guess
too dangerous.
I appreciate that you're trying, but like that's still like kind of gimmicky. If like here's a halftime event, it's not a like fan culture supporters group thing. But that's what I was.
So maybe
gonna
it has
ask
to
you
come
all.
from the fans then.
That's what I was going to ask. Is like what do you all think is, because I do think an element of what Ford Madison have done well is that, like as you said, they're like their whole stadium is doing the flamingo noises when people are taking free kicks. I don't feel like stuff really resonates at City Stadium. It seems like there's the Red Army setting off smoke and cheering. Then there's some fans who get into it, and then it feels like it's much more people there to enjoy the spectacle almost. And I would ask you all.
And
like,
there's kids rolling down the hill.
That as well, which is
playing
always
hill
happen.
soccer.
It's actually like a spectrum all the way from section O to the hill.
Exactly.
But are there things that you all think need to happen to get more people into the kind of supporters culture, get more people into it during games?
Well, I've said this before, and I've talked to my wife about it a lot, about how City Stadium is set up for the casual watcher and not for because think about going into. Because I grew up in Boston, so I imagine myself when I'm going into Gillette Stadium to watch either New England Revolution or maybe an international game.
So you've just driven like an hour.
No, it's 30 minutes. So I get there, and as I'm working my way to my seat from where I buy my ticket, I can't see the field until I get to where the seats are. Mm-hmm. And it's that sense of anticipation, that sense of you hear the noise, you hear the chanting, but you can't see anything, and you feel like you need to run so you can see what's happening. You get to City Stadium, the moment you walk in, you can kind of see the field, and you can stand and have a beer and talk and barely pay attention. And it
is too easy to stand on the concourse.
Yeah.
Exactly,
and get distracted,
it's too easy to stand on the concourse and still be in view of the field.
But what can they do? Demolish the concourse?
I know. I mean, that's one of the barriers.
Broken glass all over the concourse.
Probably so. Turn off the bear taps at the 10th minute and be like, get down there.
Get down there and cheer.
That's really, I hadn't thought about that before, but you are totally right that it's right where the beer truck is where the Red Army, like if you go down those steps, that's where y'all tend to be, but that's where we tend to end up getting stuck. And like, I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that like I will get a beer, go over to that area, and I stand on the concourse for at least the first half. And it's difficult to get
into.
You're
not paying attention until it goes. I think also, I mean, granted, the last 3 years have sucked, so like fan engagement might have gone down because it's like, all right, losing's happening. Like, not, like you said, it's been slow. Like, it hasn't been fast, anticipating happening. It hasn't been a lot of wins.
Yeah.
I also think that, and this is me too, like part of being in the Red Army is getting people knowing what we do outside of just the occasional cheer, the smoke bombs. Like, what do we do outside of the community? Because I think that's how you get the people that are like teetering, like that in between section. I think that's how you get
section right next to the Red
that's
Army,
how you get more people into it, because you let people know, like, we're just not here just to cheer and stuff like that. I think what Ford did great is, and I'm bringing up Ford because I have friends that are in Featherstone, which is like the black supporters group, is that they talk a lot about what they do in the community. Yeah. And they showcase it. Like, you really just going to have to showcase people what you do in the community and be open to that. Like, how do you help the community around you? But I also think, like we said, like, the setup of City Stadium is poor. Because, like, when you're sitting in City Stadium, what's the first thing you look across at is, like, a dead section of just, like...
And there stands that
can't be used.
And there are plans to potentially redevelop that, right? I think that's just an expensive project.
Easy plan. Can we just drop a nuke on it? Like, I've been planning this out for maybe 5 seconds.
Just take a wrecking ball, just tear it down.
I think, see, that's the kind of weird, like, easy but hard solution, is that from what I understand, it's like they want to do that, but then you have to rebuild the locker rooms because you can't tear it down and leave the locker rooms where they are. Yeah. So then they have to renovate, and then you have to get into the it's
also where the production crew goes, so you lose a TV angle if you tear down the whole thing.
It's the frustrating thing of like, that's a really obvious thing. Like, it's very clear that stand is abandoned and you can't really stand in it safely.
But it brings up more.
But then you can't.
Problems.
Yeah. So
can I make two good? Well, I think a good. I think all my suggestions are good, but can I make two suggestions? All right, to change things at City Stadium. One, I think a front office suggestion. They might have thought about this already. Is getting the fans closer to the field. So you know how like there's the C-shaped curve. I always feel like I'm quite far from the field, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's an opportunity to really get. To me, when I go and see, say, soccer back home. The stadium, you can get like 4,000 fans and feel like a really hot house atmosphere because you're right up on the action, right? Yep. So you could have people like hanging over the edge and like almost touching the field, but not quite, right? Like, if you could get fans close enough, I feel like people might be more engaged, right? And I've also got a suggestion for the Red Army. Could you guys convey this back to the Red Army?
I'm pretty sure they're listening.
Yeah.
So Taylor talked earlier about how the Red Army do their thing, and then maybe the rest of the fans aren't as involved with what the Red Army are doing, right? Yeah. What if the Red Army kind of like passed out a couple of song sheets and invited the rest of the crowd to join in on certain songs? Maybe some songs to begin with without swear words in it, so families could get involved. You could like stand at the gate and give out and say, in the 20th minute, we're going to all sing this song and we invite you to join us. And I feel like you might be able to unite the whole crowd instead of it just having the Red Army chanting and everybody else doing something else. What do you think about that?
That works great.
That would work great. Another thing is, and you see it with Seattle Sounders, LA Galaxy, is the call and response thing. So if we had a big enough group, you'd probably get it for a home opener. Red Army is huge when first game of the season, everyone shows up.
Yeah.
You get half of them on the other side of the stadium. That kind of creates a change of, the Red Army is over there and we're over here, as we in the Red Army like to call it, the library.
but that's what I'm talking about. To me, that's like a confrontational attitude to the rest of the crowd, right? Like saying they're quiet. So I'm saying invite them to join you,
exactly.
And then everybody can yell in the library.
Yeah, exactly.
I also think another thing too that I was here thinking about it that would be real cool is maybe like, see, my idea is to have the Red Army right behind the goal, but like where we tailgate at. Having like an accent, like an area where the Red Army can then walk into that area, because a lot of Red Army members get lost, like you said, in that concourse area, because it's like, we got to get beer in the 65th minute.
Yeah.
I mean, like right before halftime and when they get lost up there. But having an area where the Red Army's already at, you have the beer taps there.
Okay.
Those that are in the Red Army.
I've heard rumors that there's been talk of.
I mean, if they do it, I'm fine with
getting the Red Army like behind the goal in their own area.
Yeah, I mean that's.
Would you guys be up for that?
I would.
I think it would be better for more like
it's basically
have like
a soccer
real,
format.
Yeah, you would have like a real.
Should be behind the goal, right?
Yeah, I mean, think about all of the big stadiums. Where's the supporters group? Behind one of the goals, not in the middle somewhere. Behind one of the goals.
But is there going to be pushback on that because it's been Section O for so long? Do you think there's hesitation to
We're in
leave
America,
that area?
You're going to have pushback on everything.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe, so here's my suggestion as well. Maybe if you guys are into that idea, maybe reach out to the front office and see if that's something that we could do for 2020.
Yeah. Totally would. I'm all for new ideas.
All right. Ready for more questions?
Yeah.
I feel like we stuck on that one a while, but it turned out, even though it was about inflatable kangaroos, it turned into a really good conversation.
Yeah.
No inflatable kangaroos.
I like that you summarized that entire conversation as a thing you brought up in the very beginning. Even though it was all about inflatable kangaroos.
So, final answer, no inflatable kangaroos.
Yeah, no inflatable kangaroos. No. All right. Section O resident, we all know who he is, right? Actually asked 3 questions. He actually asked more, but I've only chosen 3. So I'm going to get these questions out there. Section O resident, you've been named coach. This is like a choose-your-own-adventure type thing. Who are the first 5 players from 2019 you try to re-sign, and what position is your top priority to strengthen? All right, so let's start with the first 5 players from 2019 that you try to...
Make one of them go while I write real fast.
I throw a bunch of money at Troyer.
Come back!
You're talking about retirement.
Yeah.
You serious?
Oh, yeah.
That'd be your first move?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Because... you look when Troyer was in that position as a true CDM, someone that was able to cover the back line.
Yeah.
We played a lot better because they allowed our midfield to actually go be attacking and not have to drop back into this very sluggish possession style.
How much would you throw the whole budget at Troyer?
More than less. Here's a house, here's a dog, here's some coffee.
House, dog, coffee.
Yeah, exactly.
Resign.
All right, so you blow all the money on Troy. Assuming there's some money left over, what are the other 4 players that you would resign?
Bulldog, of course, because of the assist and what he's done. Okay. I think he's a very player that can play multiple positions. Akwe, defensively. Hughes, because I think he can play either the wing, fullback. He can kind of fit in whatever.
All right, you got 1 left?
I know. Oh. God.
I feel like you've left off a big one.
Lockerbie.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Okay, so there's Elliot's 5. Chenier?
I'm going to go a little similar. Definitely, I mean, at this point, with someone...
being a copycat.
With someone saying that they're retiring, I'd have to be like, all right, Troyer, thanks for the memories.
Yeah. So you're going to respect his retirement?
Yes.
Yeah.
Matt Baldock, definitely.
Baldock, okay.
Gallardo, just for that added dangerous
shocked
flair.
Elliot didn't say
Yeah, did you not say Gallardo?
No, dude.
Just for his dangerous
I'm curious
flair.
about that
I mean, the craziness he can pull off at a moment's notice is very valuable. Akwe as well.
Yep.
Akira Fitzgerald, because he's been a rock back there.
Okay.
And like he said, Eli Lockerbie, because his pace is ridiculous. I still think we are standing by that he's the fastest guy in League One.
All right.
Really?
Okay. Tyler, you've been scribbling?
I mean, I was writing down some. I like, because I hadn't really thought about Baldock. I think mostly because I kind of forgot about Baldock. I had Gallardo for sure, so I'm going to circle that one.
Yep.
Matai Mwape is one that I thought was consistently very good and caused a lot of problems. That y'all didn't mention him. I have questions. But I'm going to say Mwape as well. I had Akwe because I thought he was a solid central defender throughout. I'll add Baldock because I think y'all made good points, and I think he is an attacker who can do a number of different things. That leaves me with my last one, and this one y'all might disagree with, but I really like Nick Retzlaff. I really like what we saw from him throughout the season. I honestly think he can do some things that Braden Troyer could not do.
That is true.
So
I do like that.
That's going to be my fifth one.
So, not just copying, that's the exact 5
Really?
I would have had.
All right.
Yeah.
That seems like you're copying.
My top 2 would be Gallardo and Akwe. Because I think they kind of fit what I want the Kickers to be. And again, I'm the coach in this scenario, right? Yeah. Which is a place where there are young players who you could see improving, and maybe even you could sell them on at some point. I think Wahab Akwe and Joe Gallardo both are really talented now, but also have possibly even more upside in the future. Yeah, potential to be even better. Like when you watch Akwe, I was really excited when I first saw him because he would take risks and go and charge out and win things and be really brave. And he would make occasional mistakes, right, where he would not get to something. And I always think with centre backs, when you see them mature, then they know when to gamble and when not to gamble until it becomes like they perfect it, right? Where they're taking the gambles that they can win and not taking the gambles that they can't.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I'll take that. And then I think I would have said Boateng initially, but y'all kind of talked me out of that as maybe that's a bit more like recency bias. And I do think Akira Fitzgerald, I was not as impressed with him in the beginning, but I think that's maybe because he was being asked to do some things he didn't want to do or feel comfortable with.
I still worry about him claiming crosses. Like, I don't see him come and claim crosses that much. Yeah.
That's just heightism.
It is heightism.
That's just heightism. You heightis.
If I could not get Troy, it would have been in Wape.
I mean, if you look at our last 3 consistent goalkeepers for the Richmond Kickers in the history, because I don't count the random grabbing someone from New England.
I think one of them is playing for the Revolution now, right?
Yeah,
Turner?
He's doing great as well.
Turner,
where was that
Turner was a Revolution player who we borrowed, literally.
But that's a good point.
If you look at our last 3, Ryan Taylor is the only one who has height. Look at Ronnie Pascali.
That's a good
short.
Yeah,
one of the
Wara?
Travis Wara is a DC United player.
Yeah, you're right.
So I'm saying our consistently Richmond Kickers on of the last 3, Akira, Pascali, Ryan Taylor. Ryan Taylor is the only one who's above average height.
Yeah,
true.
The interesting thing's going to be depends if the new coach what their style of play is. Right?
Yeah.
I know that from what I understand, David Bulow liked Akira Fitzgerald for his ability with his feet, his passing ability, and he fit the possession style.
Joe Rice is so the opposite. Joe Rice is literally like a sweeper keeper. Like he'll come off his line.
Yeah.
But
he's just going to knock the ball up.
Yeah, I don't remember a lot of plays where him in possession.
And distributing.
Back and forth.
But the next guy might value different things, right? So I guess we'll see. The second part of Matt's question, what's your top priority to strengthen? I feel like we already answered that with the earlier question from Zach.
Yeah. I was right on one.
Okay.
I like that.
Second question from Section O resident. There's been plenty of attention paid to the on-the-field performance in 2019. What is your primary success for the front office in 2019, and what's the one thing they must improve on? Taylor. Oh, Elliot clapped his hands.
Yeah, I got this. All right.
I'm happy that Elliot clapped his hands.
No, because
So let's start with the positive. What's the primary success in 2019?
So the primary success is, one, there's been more engagement.
Yes.
And I would say more about what the team is doing on and off the field than what has been in years past. Because there's been years like Amora. Everyone loved Amora, but when Amora was in the lineup, you had no idea why. You didn't hear from the coach afterwards of the game or pregame about this is what we're looking for in this opponent, or this is what we expect. Granted, them reaching out to you guys and setting up this podcast and us setting up our podcast, and us talking to the assistant head coach and Bulow and Rice and stuff like that. And I feel like that's been a better aspect. So it's definitely been a bigger improvement than what it's been. I think going forward, I think they have to do a better job of engaging the city and not just a particular area.
Okay.
And I think, and this is no one's fault, this is just purely like my speculation on what it was, is because like when the Kickers were owned by the youth club, now they're owned by 22 Holdings, it was more the thing of, well, we have like all these youth clubs, like Richmond United, the Strikers, other ones,
FC
right?
Richmond.
So you already know what the majority of your fan base is coming from outside of the Red Army. So it wasn't like a whole bunch of, we're going into East Side Richmond and North Side Richmond and South Side Richmond.
So you're saying they're focusing on the places where they had the youth players
we're
to try
already
and get
set
them
up
to
in,
them.
which is
Basically,
smart.
Chesterfield, Henrico, Glen Allen.
Henrico.
That was
I see.
basically
So I think
it.
now, with the front office has to do, after you've already been in the city for a year, we did a Heritage Night idea, which even though like everyone was praising me about, I still felt like we could have done, and even me personally, like, could have done more to get more people from like the East Side and North Side. And how do you engage those fans? How do you get fans that do not have a car to get to City Stadium?
Okay.
You know, how do you get people in areas of the city that might not have, like the Latin community in South Side? They play a great soccer, but have no idea that we have a pro team. Mm-hmm. So how do you engage them? How do you...
So you talk about like running transport, basically, right?
Yeah, running transport. Or like how do you... Like, you see teams like in Tormenta, they have a Spanish account. How does Kickers get something like that? Mm-hmm. How do we get more people of color into areas that those people feel comfortable? Because, I mean, we're going to have a real conversation about it. Like, some people don't feel comfortable unless they see someone that has a person that looks like them talking to them.
And can I jump in? Because I'd be curious to hear what you think about this. Because we talked to Aaron Dolores of Black Arrow FC a while ago about sort of engaging the African American community, how you do that. And I think his point was it's great that teams try to do that. Like I think we had some ideas about how we want to do that, and he's like, that's great, but like I don't want to speak for him, but he essentially was saying like, but you're coming at them still from like your perspective and your experience, and that doesn't always resonate. And so if you're sort of like doing the same thing that you would do in a predominantly white area of Chesterfield and then going to like inner city Richmond, it might not resonate as much. And so you've got to kind of change that approach a little bit. Like, do you think that's something they could do, that they could try to?
I think you have to like, and now granted, I'm a totally different kind of person. Like I'm everything that like the Heritage Night idea, this podcast is something that came from me. Like no one asked me to do it. Like this is something I wanted to do because I wanted to highlight like the soccer in Richmond. Even if you go look at my Instagram page, like I did like the whole Black History Month of like famous soccer players and managers and stuff like that, because like this is something that's not really talked about. And even like kids in the African American community or even like inner city schools, they know what's going on in soccer. They know about the Neymars and Mbappe, stuff like that, but they don't have anyone locally that they can see and connect to. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, like Bulow is a black head coach. So that's something like when I went to go tell kids like, hey, I have tickets to go to the Kickers game. Well, why would I go to Kickers? They have a black head coach. Wait, they have a black head coach? Mm-hmm. And that opens up a whole different dialogue. I think the things the Kickers should do going forward is, like you said, look at it from outside of the box, but have those conversations. You're going to have real conversations with people in those areas, in their neighborhoods. You can't expect for them to come to you because, like we said, like the lack of transport might not be there. Right. So have those town hall meetings. Maybe not at like a brewery or something like that, but go to their neighborhoods and set up community days or go do work in their community so that way you showcase it. And don't do it from a thing of, and not say the Kickers have done this, but don't do it from a standpoint of, I'm doing this for publicity or I'm doing this because I want your money. Do it with the expectation I'm doing for a good reason, because then people will feel more genuine about it.
Because a lot of people can
went
see
on for a while,
but it's interesting.
No, a lot of people can see right through that if you're doing it for money.
If you're doing it for money or you're doing it for like publicity or clout, like we say, then people aren't going to be real receptive to it. They're going to look at it and be like, well, they're just doing this because they want my money. There's nothing coming back in it for me.
Got it.
And to touch on that, the reason why a lot of people, I feel that they feel that it's that way, that, oh, they're doing it because they want my money, is because there has been a pattern with the Richmond Kickers front office of starting things and then just letting it drop. For example, first game of the season this season, who was in Section O? Who was in Section O with
VCU.
us? VCU's, some of their drumline was in Section O with us. Have we seen anything like that before after that first game? Dropped off. Nothing. Looking for
example, that thing where the front office brought in?
I'm not sure if it was the front office that did something to draw them in, but also you're looking, for example, a while back, the Kickers used to do something over the summer at YMCAs during summer camps where they would have coaches go out there and do soccer sessions with them. I used to actually be one of the coaches to go out there. On the last day of those sessions, they'd bring Kickers players. I remember Alex Lee, Robert Hughes coming out to interact with the kids. After a year or two of that, it disappeared. Mm-hmm. If you keep things up like that, it's not going to happen immediately. And if we were to start things to try and draw in people from those neighborhoods, it's not going to happen immediately. It'll probably be 2-3 seasons down the line that you really start to see a flow from South Side, from North, from East End, coming into City Stadium. It'll take a while, but if you just do it once, didn't work, and leave.
Yeah.
I mean, you're never going to get
that
the
point.
success.
Elliot, you were obviously you spearheaded Heritage Night, right?
Yeah.
Can I assume that you'll do that again in 2020? Because the thing tends to be that like an idea like that, from what I understand, it was something of a success, but you feel like it could have been bigger. But I feel like you can build on it year on year, right?
Yeah, definitely. And like, my wife gets on me all the time. By the way, I love you, Electa. It was something of where I put a lot of pressure on myself.
Yeah. Because
I wanted this night to be something. Granted, we pulled in fans from Forward, North Carolina. I think For the Culture was here. Yeah. A lot of people were here that probably have never stepped foot into City Stadium. But if you look at that night by itself, and this is just me being my toughest critic, I'm like, how many of those people left that night with I'm going to now go look at the Black History Museum that's in Richmond, or now I know about Alpha Phi Alpha's Beta Gamma Lambda's Education Foundation, I'm going to go invest in them, or here's El Campo on South Side. I was just thinking how many people left that night, regardless of the result, how many people left that night knowing about these communities and these programs that help these communities,
right?
And how to better do that.
If that's on your mind, that's the thing you can improve in 2020, right?
Yeah, most definitely.
Taylor, what do you think? So to go back to the original question, it was what's a thing the front office did well? What's a thing they could do in 2020?
So I think I agree with a lot of what Chenier said, and I think that will be part of my answer. I would say hear me out, but I think the best thing they did was continue to exist, because they switched from a model when it's the youth team having a lot of say, controlling the budget a little bit, to now they are running as more of a business. I think they probably don't want to say that, but I think that's my perspective on it.
Yeah.
And I think when you make that transition, you've got to learn how to do a lot of stuff, and I think there are a lot of things that I didn't necessarily love about some of the changes that were made, little things that I think had an impact, like suddenly people had to pay to park. Yeah. I think that had an impact more than they might have expected. And so I think what I would say is what they did really well was kind of change the model in a way that they needed to maybe allow things to continue to function. But I would say next season it's about learning from that and not just dropping stuff. Because for me, I showed you all the shirt I have that I got signed when I was 11 or 12. That built that loyalty. That's why I still like the Kickers, is because all those players would come to stuff and sign jerseys and hang out. And
I used to play soccer at John B. Carey, and there's a picture of me and Lee Calishaw and a couple of other guys that were on that team. And I still remember that because they came from City Stadium came over to our practice. I'm 9.
Yeah.
And these guys hanging out with us and showing us how to pass the ball without using our big toe and things like that. Things that you remember. But it's something cool that I could go tell hey, I have this picture of this legend.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then it makes you want to be more around.
Be like, Elliot, stop using your big toe. In step.
See, I would just say I hope they keep doing stuff. But my biggest success, I think, was that they continued operations. But then I hope that next season it's much more than that. And they've learned some lessons and they've streamlined some things. And because even the very first game, I think, the opening day, I can't remember if it was the ticketing system was messed up, or they didn't have enough people.
I think ticketing, the beer lines, everything.
Internet went down. It was just one of those days where everything was going wrong.
And to be fair, a lot of the Kickers staff then pitched in. When it wasn't their job to do stadium operations, they all just pitched in to make it happen. And from what I can tell, they learned from it. And next time round, there were more events.
And that's what I mean.
They did learn lessons instead of keep letting things go wrong.
And I just want those lessons to continue to be learned, because I think anytime as an organization you're thinking we got it, we're nailing it, every single thing is perfect, then you're not growing anymore because you're just kind of resting on your laurels.
So I feel like everything you guys talked about were big ideas. I'm going to focus on a couple small things. I think one thing they did well, and this is kind of like my obsession we talked about earlier. They got some fans behind the goal with the VIP boxes at either end.
So I genuinely couldn't remember. Is that a new thing?
Yeah,
I could not remember if that was.
There used to be VIP boxes, but they were just placed on top of
things,
the.
Right?
Yeah. Now we had a thing behind the goal at each end. I would like to see it be more of a rowdy crowd behind the goals than a VIP corporate crowd.
VIP needs to be at Hatfield.
Yeah.
But I also understand that maybe that's how they make money. You know what I mean? By selling those VIP things. But I think maybe you could make at least one end like a fan end. And maybe even just if there's a way... I feel like I've heard talk of this, of the bowl, like maybe building over the top of the bowl so that you can have seats that are closer to the field.
Yeah, I mean, but even if you...
So there's just like in-stadium experiences that I'd like to see.
But if they took... Yes, and if they took that big hospitality thing like near Section O and they turned that into where y'all were, like that would be... That creates an idea of like, oh, I want to be in there. Like, there's a beer truck back there. There's people being rowdy in there. That would be fun to me. And like, I missed the period of RVAFC. Daryl, you were here for that. I don't know if y'all were.
I went to one game. I went to when RVAFC played the Kickers.
I came in the year afterwards when they dissolved.
Yeah. See, that'll happen. But like, didn't they have like bleachers behind the goals? It felt like it was a very rowdy atmosphere, and they got people into it.
To be fair, they just had like a rope.
Yeah.
And then people standing behind the rope, and then I think Hardywood were selling beer back there.
But I guess that's what I mean. Is like if you have a thing where there's if you walk in to Chenier's point, like you can walk in, you can see the whole field, and if you walk in and you see a bunch of people behind the goal being rowdy, being loud, and there's like a beer truck back there and there's stuff to do, you're going to migrate that way. But if you're up top and there's some people there and like Red Army are still partially in their tailgate zone but partially where in their seats are, and you can't kind of see around some of the sky decks, it just doesn't invite you in the way I think you're right, that if you create.
And I think
the
other thing too, like I think the Section O pass, like the season ticket is like the cheapest one to get.
Yeah,
it's $100, but there's no different. Like there's nothing that
separates.
Yeah, that separates you. Like it's not like I get these perks that come with it, or I get into this secret entrance that has an underground tunnel, and I'm here with this bunch of.
You're like a Goodfellas entrance, like
I guess so.
Through the back of the restaurant.
Like the WWE Nitro like entrance, the pyro.
Yeah, it's like you were saying earlier. I think it was before we recorded that. There aren't enough perks for being a season ticket holder. What can we do throughout the season, not just on the first day, to keep or even preseason? And if you start to do things throughout the season, then we don't have that massive dip in the middle of the summer where no one comes to the games.
Yeah,
because there's a reason. We're talking about
so this year, if I'm doing the math right, this is the upcoming year will be the 25th anniversary of the U.S. Open Cup team. I don't know if y'all knew that or not. Richmond's won a U.S. Open Cup. They like to throw that fact out there a lot.
Oh, do they? I know
that. So it would be cool to have like that original team come back and make it like an event. Like, so granted, I'm from the South, Richmond, Virginia. I went to Virginia State University, which our homecoming is this week, but it's like a week-long event. Like, they do something every day, and it's leading up to Saturday, where it's like it's homecoming, people out there tailgated, like it's huge.
Go Union.
Taylor gonna make me fight him. I was about to cuss. Yeah, I remember where I was at. But I think it would be really unique to see the Kickers do something like a Friday night where you like the season ticket holders. If you're a season ticket holder or whatever, you get to meet like that past team that Friday night.
All right. So they just bring as many of those guys back.
Yeah, bring those guys back. You get to meet them. Or like alumni players like Yambi and Yaisley and whatnot. A lot of those guys still live in the area. Get to meet them, get to hang out with them like a Friday, like at a brewery or whatever. Saturday before the game, you do like 7v7. Some safe, you know.
Play against the Open Cup team.
I mean, no, not play against them, but knees. Some safe if they're up to it. But like you seeing those guys play against each other, and whatnot. Then of course you have the game, and then Sunday you do something that is open to the whole crowd. Whereas like we do like a brunch or something at a facility. You buy a ticket to it. Anyone can buy a ticket to it. The ticket, once again, tying it back into the community. The proceeds from that might go to like we're supporting this one foundation. But it's all about bringing people in together and making it feel like, this is my team, and it's like a real homecoming atmosphere. It feels like home.
So celebrate the history and make sure
exactly.
Celebrate.
Like if we're gonna harp on the fact that we're the longest continuing running franchise, I want to know the history on why, like, how have we been along?
No, but I get it. I get why you use that tone of voice.
Yeah.
It's because we've heard that so many times, right? And it is something worth celebrating.
Wait,
but
are
you've
they?
got to find,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, good. And it is worth celebrating,
No?
but you've got to find new ways to celebrate it instead of just keep saying it and hoping that that's enough, right?
That makes sense. How many questions in are we, by the way?
We have 2 more. So you want to keep going?
We're 41 minutes in.
Wow, okay.
Right around now. Yeah.
We have one more from Section O resident. Okay.
44. Excuse me.
Section O resident asks, "What was the moment you realised it wasn't happening this year?" And Taylor, this is kind of a quiz for you because I went back and looked through the descriptions of our podcast, and there was definitely a show where we were a certain number of games in and a certain result happened, and we were like, all right, here's what I'd change if I was in charge.
Was it one of the Lansing games? I mean, that's
No.
early on.
Those were very early.
I'm about to say that was like first 10.
Yeah, exactly. We played them, 3 times in 5 games?
Yeah.
I think, honestly, I still kind of had hope up until, when Coach Bueller was in here and talked about, the final 5 games or so, and how it was all we got to do is win them all. And even, had a kind of a strategy for how they knew they were going to win them all. What's that?
The Pokemon approach.
Yes, exactly. But even then he was practical about, North Texas away. We're probably not going to win that game.
I see.
So we might do some rotation. That, to me, still felt like there was a plan in place. There was a possible plan to pull off. And at that point, there had been a slight turnaround. So it felt like maybe this is the bounce and they figured things out. Because, sorry for going long here, but, I did think that...
I mean, we are 44 minutes in.
I know. But I did think that in the beginning of the season, okay, this is the team that's going to take some time. They got to learn his system. Once they learn his system, they'll play better than anyone else in the league does.
Yeah.
It'll catch fire. They'll win everything. They'll make the playoffs. And I think that's where I was. And once those results did not go that way, probably that loss to Forward Madison, when I think it was playoffs pretty much done. Yeah. That was probably when I was all right, this isn't really working. But I would then add that even before that, I think I started to have my significant doubts.
All right. So I can tell you that based on our podcast schedule, it was 12 games in. And I think we're answering this in slightly different ways, right? But we talked about how maybe the possession style of soccer wasn't working because it was 12 games in. It was a 2-0 home loss to the Chattanooga Red Wolves. And it's when we talked about how, we were level on points-ish with this team going in and they beat us. And it was one of those games where the possession style didn't work, right? It was just moving the ball around moving the ball around the field and no penetration. And we started talking about how, okay, something needs to be shifted up to maybe make us a more dangerous team and not a team that just has possession that doesn't go anywhere. And I think based on that conversation, because I listened to a bit of it, we were sort of 12 games is enough to get it, and it looks like it's not working.
I don't know if this was before or after that 12 games, but you saying that jogged my memory. I remember the point where I was like, this is not good. And it was Orlando City B. That loss to Orlando City B on the road was when I was like,
the 3-2.
The players don't look motivated. Even though there were some goals, it still just felt like this is not clicking the way it's supposed to. People are still not kind of functioning the way we want them to.
So that was about 2 weeks before.
Okay, that was the one where I think I had concerns.
Was the home game against North Texas when North Texas were on fire, and we just knew that game wasn't winnable. So that kind of, it's almost like North Texas is a gimme as a loss almost.
That was CVSA night, right?
Yes, it was.
I think that was the one time this season where I was like, I'm just going for it. I'm not even. I think I had several drinks that night.
It was Ricardo Pepe night.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, we're not winning this game. I'm not even paying attention.
Guys, for you, when was it that you realised, all right, this team's not going to be good this year?
I mean, it was a couple of times. Like you said, that Orlando City B away game. But I always had in the back of my mind.
May 22nd, by the way.
I always had it in the back of my mind that was the last of 3 or 4 away games where we were bouncing off all over the place. We went from North Carolina to Greenville, and then it looked like the guys were just knackered. And it was okay, now you've got jet lag on top of that. They just looked like they were out of it. And that, in the back of my mind, made me feel it may be just because of that. So there's still maybe a little hope. But after I had my hope peaked again after we went through that stretch of good wins, especially that game against Tormenta where Joe Gallardo scored that brilliant Messi-esque goal. And then we go to North Texas midweek, and I see that it's not too many of the starting lineup.
They scored in the first 15 seconds.
Oh, I know, but what I was thinking in the back of my mind was, even before the game started, just seeing who was sent to that game, I was thinking to myself, okay, so we're putting in all our chips for that Madison home game. So we knew. I mean, at the end of the day, in my mind, I knew that even with our best starting lineup, we weren't going to beat that North Texas team. So let's rest our players because that forward Madison game is the one we need to start winning games to make sure we stay in. So when I saw Bulow rest a lot of the starting players for that North Texas game, I said, okay, there's still hope. And forward Madison.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, it's
Elliot,
done.
same for you or something
It's
different?
done.
So as a person who loved teams who suck, like the Magic and, the Boston Red Sox were horrible, I had cautious optimism after the 7-game losing streak when we started winning.
Did you say the Boston Red Sox are a losing team? Like, I understand what you mean that they used to be, but, like, they won 3 World Series.
Well, this year we suck, and
Okay.
I'm not a baseball.
Okay, I got you.
Also, I like the Tennessee Titans that were horrible.
Well, yeah, that's on you.
This is also true.
That's a choice you made.
So after the 7-game losing streak?
After the 7-game, I was cautiously optimistic, but then when we lost the Ford away game, the second one, and then I looked at the schedule, I was like, yo, we're pretty much going to have to do like the UConn run of like going, what was it? I think 6 or 8 unbeaten. And I was like, this team hasn't done that. And even in the games that we had that we won, they were like by the skin of our teeth. Like, and I try to keep hope. Like, as long as there was, I was trying to keep hope. And as long as there wasn't an E beside our name, but you kind of already saw it.
Did you have a game? Or was it when the
Chattanooga Red Wolves.
Chattanooga?
Yeah,
Okay.
at home,
Chattanooga,
lost
yeah.
2-0.
And then y'all might not like this one as well. I would add this. Ford Madison, the one at home, was, I think, my like lowest, like kind of everything about that was a bummer. Like, I know y'all had like the Henny Derby and it was like super fun and like y'all had like a good hangout.
Yeah, but off the field it was fun.
Yeah, but on the field, like that's the game. And I won't even say that. That game on the field hurt me not as much as the Tucson game. The last Tucson game where it looked like nothing was going right on the field.
Yeah.
No,
But
Like
see,
the
last
draw,
Tucson
the
game
nil
was
draw, it looked nothing was going right.
But for me, it was off the season or off the field that was rough too in that game because like Ford brought down that bus, but then they had people come up from North Carolina, they had people fly in from Florida, and it's like here's this new team that brought like 40, 50 people, and it was just a like. Wow, they're kind of like they're good. Like they won this game, and they're kind of like dominating, like in terms of like bringing this massive amount of fans, and it just felt a little bit like a little bit rudderless.
I think that's on me too
field.
because I went out of my way to invite them. I
I
was making a whole of it. But
It was great. It was great. They came. It just felt like it was sort of like, oh wow, there's a lot of them, and I expected it to be like, oh, but there's going to be 3 times as many Kickers people, not just Red Army, but like people around hanging out, making it a thing, and it wasn't quite that, and so it felt a little bit. I am not nearly as
like you're saying a team came and took over
a little bit.
Yeah,
And it was
basically.
and we had like Jason Davis came down, Pablo came down, Adam Snavely came down, and it felt a little bit like in our house. Like I don't like this. I don't like in our house. Like
we invited too many journalists.
One that pregame. That had on a Ford jersey.
Yeah, they brought me a jersey. Of course, I'm going to wear it. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to still be from Richmond and supporting the Kickers.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that. I mean, to be honest with you, I know I talk about how the rest of the stadium is usually unresponsive. They don't make a peep unless a goal is scored by the Kickers. I feel like it was even worse that night. I mean,
because you could hear the Forward fans.
No, it's no.
Well, I think the atmosphere was better because we had
of,
2 fan bases going at it.
But at the end of the day, we were practically right next to each other, and literally, you would think to yourself, even as a casual fan, just in general, the culture in the United States for sports, period, is not in our house.
Yeah.
And that mentality of we're gonna let Forward, who's from where?
Green Bay country.
I could understand if they were from.
They're from Madison, Wisconsin.
I could understand if it was Charleston Battery, who are right down the highway. But they are from states away, and they're coming here and they are dominating on the field and in the stands. And it just felt like a complete turnaround. Like the Red Army was doing. We did all we could. To be
put a
loud.
flamingo head on a spike. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, we did all we could.
I think I drank so much Henny that day. I don't think I drank it since.
We did all that we could in that game, and it was unusually quiet in the rest of the stadium. Which
all right, so we found the low point.
There are several of them. It seems. Yeah.
Okay, final question on this part of the crossover episode is from Alex Trammell. Alex asks or says, it seems like there will be quite a bit of roster turnover for next year. now that all the teams have a year under their belt and know the quality of the league. What player would you poach from another team?
Nick Moon.
All right.
That's a good
Nick Moon.
shout.
From Lansing, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Nick Moon.
Ricardo Pepi?
I mean, that's where I am. I'm
That
like,
was my answer. Yeah. If you could take anyone,
just
take
Because if I'm losing Troy, I want Nick Moon there.
Well, because it also, because you place him. It also, Ricardo Pepi would solve the striker.
The striker
problem.
Ronaldo
issue.
Damas. I'll add him in there too.
The winger from North Texas.
Yeah, him too. I mean, I think anybody from North
Yeah.
Texas.
The defensive midfielder I went for, if we can't get Ricardo Pepi, is Eric Leonard, who I think is at Forward Madison.
Okay.
Do you remember seeing him?
Oh, yeah.
He did a really good job in defensive midfield. He could be the Braden
And
Troyer
he's a set piece specialist.
replacement.
That's how he scores goals.
Is that right?
Aaron Jersey and I had a conversation about why did he have so many goals when he was playing in Australia, New Zealand, or wherever, and that was the answer.
Bunch of headers on set pieces.
No, I think he took their free kicks.
Oh, he took
'Cause
them.
He's a little fella, I think.
I see.
Uh-huh.
All right. So
You
the
should know
answers
that,
were Ricardo
Since
Pepi,
you hate people who are short.
Eric Leonard, Nick Moon.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Those are our three.
Sure.
All right. So this has been part one of the Richmond Kickers special.
Can I say Ford's coach, or can I say North Texas's coach? Can I poach that person
I
as
guess
well?
you can, but you need the whole academy.
Oh.
We just poach the whole
Dude,
Dallas
that's
academy.
a good point. Never mind. I take that back. You're right. I don't want that anymore. I want somebody else to coach.
If you want to hear part two, the second set of 7 questions will be on the River City 93 podcast, which you can find in all good podcast apps, right? You just
Yes.
search
Yeah.
You can
River
find
City
us.
93, and there it is. It's Elliot and Chenier's podcast. All right. So on behalf of Taylor Rockwell, Elliot Barr, Chenier, I forgot your second name. I'm sorry.
Durand
Chenier
the second.
Durand the
That's your
second.
second name.
I'm shaking my head at you right now.
Thank you to everybody. My apologies. Thank you to everybody for listening. I normally say we'll have the Red Army play us out, but it means that these two guys will be. You're about to hear the musical talents, of Elliot and Chenier, and the rest of the Red Army.
Do.
Kickers,